On episode 2 of rebuilding my 1000 horsepower all-wheel drive K20 EM1, we are going to be tearing apart this transmission. Now this is a Quaife sequential transmission, drag cartel billet housing. This is a very, very expensive transmission. I have never worked on a sequential in my life, but this thing needs to be torn down to get all of the metal out of it from when our transfer case left the chat about a year ago. If you guys are wondering, the cost on this transmission with the billet housing, $16,000. That's more than my life is worth. So let's hope we do not mess this up. As a matter of fact, I literally cannot mess this up because I could not afford to replace it if I did mess it up. I've worked on plenty of other transmissions in my life, just traditional, basic Honda transmissions, Subaru transmissions, Evo transmissions. But like I said, I've never opened up a sequential transmission. I don't know how much different it's going to be. So I'm going to take my time and make sure everything is marked, everything is labeled, and everything goes back exactly where it needs to go. The reason we need to tear this thing apart is because of this. This is all metal shavings from when the transfer case exploded on this car, and I do not feel comfortable running this transmission with the possibility of more gunk inside the actual transmission. So let's go ahead and figure out how this thing is torn down. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go through with a paint pen and mark everything exactly where it is. For example, this sensor right here, to be honest, don't know exactly what that sensor's for, but I know it should probably go back where it belongs. That guy sits like that. That guy sits like that. Y'all get the point. I'm going to take this very, very carefully. First, I'm going to remove this casing right here. Now let's hope that this guy just pops off nice and easy. All right. So far so good. Definitely some metal in here. Definitely some metal in here. I like how this thing is just O-ringed and not used with sealant. That is a very nice little addition. I'm going to pull this back cover off next. Looks like it's just some sort of holder. I bet it actually goes all the way through to the selector up front. Nice little unit. So I'm thinking from here, I'm hoping it's something similar to like a factory K-series transmission where we can just pull out all of these outer perimeter bolts, little 8mm by 1.25, pull out those bolts and pull this bell housing off of the, I guess you'd call it the transmission assembly. Now on the underside, there is this 14mm bolt right here. I believe this holds the, oh man, what was it? The reverse fork shaft, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. The one rusty bolt on the transmission. I'm really hoping I can just split the cases, not have to deal with the stacks whatsoever, the gear set at all. Just clean out the metal. I don't know how much is going to be in there. And go ahead, reassemble. That is my goal for the day. Okay, let's see about splitting this case. She wasn't wanting to split. I went ahead and pulled out. This pin goes all the way through, so that will be a little bit tricky to get lined up later. But it looks like now it's about to split. Can you try to see what is holding it up as I lift it up? Because I don't want to have to pull all this apart.
Yeah, the big bolts have to come off. All that shit has to come out of it.
Okay. So fifth gear is out here outside of the case, the cuff, I guess you'd call it. And you have to pull the nuts off and pull off fifth gear in order to split the cases on a sequential. I was hoping to not have to do any of this, but it is what it is. Aha! She's separated. Yeah, it's a good thing I pulled it apart. Just a little bit of metal. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense now how this works. Let's go ahead, get this thing fully disassembled, so that it can all be cleaned. I think the stacks themselves, all the gears, the shafts, everything looks perfect. I'll just do a quick wipe down on these. There's not a ton of metal in here, and thankfully it does have a magnetic drain plug on it, so all the steel is going to be on that drain plug. One thing important to note, this here is the input shaft. There are shims. Make sure the proper shims go back on in place. Here's the center diff with metal on it. All right, this thing is completely torn down. Now we need to go through and clean it up, get all this metal out of here. I was expecting more based off of when my 2021 Type R scattered the T-case. The trans was also filled with gunk, but this is what we got. A little bit down there, majority of it is on that magnetic drain plug, which is good. As long as all the bearings spin fine, we should be in the clear to go ahead, just clean it and reassemble. So we have all of the parts for the entire transmission cleaned up. I got all of those metal shavings out of the cases. This guy had the most amount in it. Got all the bearings cleaned up. This thing is ready to go back together. I'm just gonna set the camera down, run a good old time lapse because I really gotta focus and make sure this thing goes back together exactly how it came apart. And there we have it, my friends, a fully refreshed, reassembled that didn't make any sense, sequential transmission for the K20 EM1. To my surprise, this transmission was actually quite a bit more simple than a traditional like synchro non-sequential transmission. Being all straight cut gears makes it easier, not having any synchros makes it easier, and quite honestly, just the whole setup of a sequential was quite a bit easier than a traditional transmission. Now I'm saying all that without having it in the car and confirming that it actually works, but honestly it's so simple that I really don't think I messed anything up. I guess we'll see when we get it back in the car, but before that we do have to go through the engine, fix a couple things up on the motor, and get everything back together all at once. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you're going to go through your sequential, hopefully this video helps you out. It's very simple, don't overthink it. I was initially going to send it out to a transmission expert and have them do that, but I'm glad I didn't. I learned, I saved money, and I had fun. Hope you guys enjoyed. Goodbye.